And so I want us to remember, just like we remember 9/11, I want us to never fail to remember Charlie Kirk. And I want us to be committed to doing exactly what Charlie Kirk was trying to do, which is save America, save this country, save our Constitution, save our freedom. And never forget that he willingly laid down his life for those causes. It's almost, it's really hard to imagine that it actually happened. But I want y'all to remember him, and we honor him tonight. And we're going to have just a moment of silence in honor of the memory of Charlie Kirk. So just bow your heads if you would.
Some people would actually believe, and they come out of the woodwork when I do stuff like this. We record all of it so that we put on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens. Because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity.
Never stop talking. Never let your voices be silenced. And I pray that we never resort to violence in this country. As long as we honor the standards that Charlie Kirk honored in his ministry, we're going to be fine. But never forget the sacrifice that he made for this nation. I know Pastor Kris is going to be having a service with TPUSA coming up to remember Charlie, and there's going to be so much that you're going to have an opportunity to participate in. And I hope y'all will do that, but I hope y'all will, again, never forget the legacy of Charlie Kirk. We are greatly indebted to him. Thank y'all. So now we're going to turn to our program 9/11. I want to introduce to you several speakers that have made a habit of coming to these services. And I see Chief Tanner's joined us. Welcome, Chief. Chief Tanner called me last year. He said, are y'all going to do that this year? Y'all going to do the service again? So we are so thrilled that Horry Fire, that the Sheriff's Office, and that Horry Police Department have all participated with us, with the party, to have this service remembering 9/11. So Chief Tanner, Sheriff, Chief Leonhardt, if y'all would all come on up. You know, some of these men really need no introduction, and I'm really thinking that y'all can have a seat. Thank y'all. I would give the sheriff a hard time, but I'm not going to start right now. I'm going to give him a minute. I'm going to let him relax for a minute. I will introduce Chief Tanner. Joey Tanner is the Chief of Department for Horry County Fire and Rescue, a position that he has held for 10 years. Prior to joining Horry County Fire and Rescue, Chief Tanner worked for the City of Georgetown Fire Department for 31 years, the last 18 as Fire Chief. Chief Tanner leads the largest all-hazard emergency service organization in South Carolina, comprised of over 600 career members and 150 volunteer personnel. Horry County Fire Rescue operates out of 41 rescue stations, protecting 400,000 citizens, 12 million visitors, and a landmass of 1,255 square miles. It's a big place. This organization has responded to over 83,000 incidents in 2024. Chief Tanner holds a bachelor's degree in fire science from National Fire Academy. He is a graduate of the Executive Fire Officers Program. He's been awarded the Chief Fire Officer designation from the Commission on Professional Credentialing and completed the University of South Carolina's Institute for Department Management. Chief Tanner is an active member of the South Carolina Association of Fire Chiefs, the South Carolina Firefighters Association, and the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and an active member of the Fire Rescue International's Metropolitan Chiefs Section, a member of the Institution of Fire Engineers, a governor appointee to the South Carolina Firefighter Mobilization Oversight Committee, and in 2023 was elected as the recipient of the Fritz Turner Award as the top fire chief in South Carolina. So let's give him a round of applause. learned from my brother-in-law, the late James Saganowitz, what a great man this gentleman is. And I also learned that fighting fires is a way of life. And so I've come to have so much respect for this man. Y'all please welcome Chief Joey Tanner. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Everybody awake? Good. We're going to have a good time here. But I want you to do something for me before we start. Because I want you to look at each other and say thank you. Because I'm going to say thank you for back in March the 1st, for 92 days we had a wildfire. Do you remember that? Yeah, for 92 days we had that around here. And I thank you for being in support of us for 92 days straight. So thank you so much for that. It was an exciting time, to say the least. It was a scary time, a lot of time to say the least. Something we don't want to do again, but we probably will. But again, your support as a community for us, 1,250 square miles is still a community to us. You are all part of our family. And we're going to be there. We had a promotion ceremony the other day, and we made the comment that your promotion is a promise. Your promise to our organization, to our community, and to our citizens, but it's our promise to you as well, too. We're going to be there to respond to your needs. Now, I will tell you, when you call 911, we're not going to be there when you hang up the phone. It's going to take us a while. We're going to get there as quick as we possibly can. After all, we can only go so fast because we'll get to place here. But you think it takes you an hour? I've called for 911 before for my father-in-law, and our own organization said, well, where are they at? Where are they at? They're only 5 minutes away, but when you're waiting, it seems like forever and a day. But our promise to you is that we're going to be there. And we're committed every day to getting better. We train all the time. As Reese said, we have a lot of people, largest fire and rescue organization in the state, and that's not by happenstance. That's by intention. And our county council, our leadership and administration has made a commitment to you to provide services to you that we have never had before. All the things that we do multiple times a day. Right now, you said last year was 83,000 calls for the end of the year. Today, we're at 64,000, I think, for the year already. And some change. But the Carolina Forest Fire was only one call. Even though we had 200 or 300 calls throughout the day in that location, we only counted as one. So we're at 64,000 calls already this year. We continue to grow, continue to meet that need. So thank you for your support. Thank you for your taxes. We need your money. We appreciate that as well, too. So thank you for that. So why are we here? 9/11. We think about that. So I want you to close your eyes for a moment and just bear with me for a second. I wrote some numbers down that I want to talk about. Early in the morning, September 11th, a plane hit a building. A plane hit a second building. Unbeknownst to everybody else, another plane was headed to the Pentagon. Another plane was being hijacked. And when it all happened, we were all doing multiple things. And then we heard about it. And we looked at our television screens and taking yourself back, and we start thinking, what happened? This is a tragic mistake. The system failed. And then, no, it can't be that big a mistake. And as we watched in horror of all that happening, I can tell you, my brothers up on stage here, we saw our brothers and sisters running towards that as hard as they could. Because in that building were people who woke up that morning just to go to work. People going to Pentagon to go to work. People on an airline just to go home. But all of a sudden, something happened. And then all of a sudden, as we watched those buildings, we saw something we never thought we'd ever see. And buildings began to crumble. And at the end of that, 343 firefighters were killed. 60 police officers were killed. 8 EMT paramedics were killed. 411 first responders, my brothers, my sisters, were killed. In an airplane flying, ordinary citizens, just like us, we're trying to go home for the day, we're going on vacation, we're doing multiple things together, and they said what? No, we're going to stop this. And in Pennsylvania, they crashed. This other plane goes into the heart of our security for our country, the Pentagon. It was a shot at the heart of who we are. So now open your eyes. We saw all that. We cried. We were in shock. Remember the word shock and awe? We heard that throughout the whole time here. But something happened during that time. This country said, no, you're not going to tear us apart. I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat. I don't care your race, color, or creed. We said we are Americans. And we are not going to be swayed what we do. Whether we like what the politics were doing, they prayed together. Think about it. Our country was built on those Christian principles. They prayed together. And then it was like, you remember in Pearl Harbor, when it happened, they said, we think we just awoke the sleeping giant. And that's what happened on 9/11. The sleeping giant woke up. And again, I wrote some words down here. It said, at that point in time, as we looked at that, the American people said, we now see unity in the way the Americans reach out with compassion. To who? To each other. Unity among ourselves. Then it said we saw resilience as we begin to rebuild, refusing to let the fears define us. Do you remember the day when George Bush threw the pitch out at the Yankees game? How did you feel to that? You're not going to take away who we are. We had resilience to do that. Then it said, so let me ask you a question. How many of you have had an American flag on your car after 9/11? I want to ask you a question. Where is that flag today? Don't raise your hand. Where is that flag today? Where are we as a country? We only did it one time. Why can't we continue to do that? I'm sorry, I don't want to preach, but Pastor, I'm sorry, but we're going to preach here in a minute. But the whole idea is we're still Americans. We have not changed. We talk about, in church, we talk about God doing great things. Where is God? Where is God? God didn't change. We're the ones who changed. We have to be careful how we look at those things. Like, well, they're doing this. I agree. We have lots of issues. We have issues in Horry County, issues in our state, in our region, in our country, in our world. But we're still Americans. We should be together. And I look at us, and I said, what did it do to the first responder community? Well, you know what? We didn't have lots of issues at that point. There was respect. Look, me and the chief and the sheriff, I love these guys like brothers. But I promise you, we'll rag on each other really, really, really hard. I tell the police, Chief Hill used to all the time, I say, listen, I saw you at Duncan yesterday. So I noticed where you are. He said, but I rode by your place and y'all were all asleep. So we get it. So, but we can do that, but nobody else better do that. That's my brother. But yet we have people right now who want to spit on them because they're doing their job. We have people to shoot at them right now because they're doing their job, just trying to maintain control. We've had paramedics in this country who are being stabbed in the back of an ambulance now because they're doing their job. Being shot on the side of the road trying to cut someone out of a car. That has nothing to do with political party or with individuals. That has to do with pure old nothing but pure old devil and sin and meanness. My grandmother said that's just pure old purity meanness is what that is. But that's where we are now. We have that around. We've always had that. But we've always been stronger together. Remember the word unity after 9/11? I don't care who you were. If you needed something, I don't care. We were there. Each other took care of each other. Neighbor for neighbor, street by street, house by house, block by block, community by community, state by state. And where is that today? We need to get back to where we came from. It took tragedy to put us there. What happened yesterday was tragic. But I'll tell you this, there's a book that sometimes I'm sure sits right here, but it tells you out of that, no matter how bad it is, it still stands. The American people still stand. What I've learned over my years, when tragedy like yesterday happened, when tragedy like 9/11 happens, it's going to destroy. It doesn't. Because we talk about Pearl Harbor. We still talk about it. Now, I don't know what happened, but when I got hired in Horry County, my first day at work was December the 7th. I said, what are you trying to tell me? I'm going to work on December the 7th here. But we still talk about December the 7th. There's a few people who still remember that because they were there. We don't, but we know the story, right? And we still talk about it when it happens, right? Did that destroy our country? No, it did not. But it's there for remembrance. 9/11 did not destroy our country. It tried to. But now we're 24 years later, we remember. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for remembrance, Reese. We're here to remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice to protect the way that we live. The ones who they ran to a building that was getting ready to fall down. When everybody else was trying to go out, they ran into that building. So it makes us stronger. What happened yesterday is not going to destroy this country. It'll make it stronger because we'll remember. Amen. Every day we remember something new about what happened. And the last thing I want to say is I remember my brothers who were there. As I say that day showed the true courage of the first responders. Can you imagine going to a high-rise building, to any building, when everybody else is screaming, fire's coming all over the place, and you look up and you go, I'll go. They didn't back down. A friend that we all know was in the lobby. He was the first chief on scene. He was a battalion chief. He was the first chief on scene. He had lobby control in South Tower. His brother came on the engine. And he talks about it in his book. He talks about it when he talks it around the country. I looked up, there's a video on one of the shows on 9/11, and it shows him standing in the lobby. He looks over, his brother come in the door. He does this number. His brother died. He sent his brother up. He shook his head and said, and his brother was telling him, I'll go. But he knew it was going to happen. A friend of mine, Peter Gansey, chief of the department at FDNY, they found him, the chief of the fire department, under the pile, under the rubble. He didn't leave his people there. He was going to be there. The commissioner told him, get out, Pete, leave. You come with me. He says, you do your part with the mayor. I'm staying with my people. His radio that they found is on display in New York City. But you saw the courage of the first responder. You saw the duty of the first responders. And that day, it didn't matter whether you're a police officer or a firefighter. We were hand in hand doing the same job. And I can tell you this unequivocally, in Horry County, whether it's firefighter, police officer, the sheriff's office, anybody who wears the badge in Horry County, we respect each other, we walk hand in hand with each other, and we're going to be there to support each other forever for you. We're here for you every day. And the last two things I'll say that you saw that day was sacrifice. You saw sacrifice. They were willing to give it all. And I can tell you in Horry County, sometimes our job is very difficult because we're trying to keep our people back out of harm. And it's like trying to pull that horse that's trying to run. Slow down to make sure we do the right things here. Those first responders, those folks on the airplane, they knew they were not going home. They knew that, but they made a sacrifice. So duty, honor, courage, and sacrifice. That's what the first responder life is all about. So thank you for who you are to support us every day. And we'll give you our promise and our commitment to you. So thank you very much for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, Chief. We do appreciate you very much, and we appreciate your department. Our next speaker is Sheriff Phillip Thompson. If there's a man in the room that does not need an introduction, it's Sheriff Phillip Thompson. But I'm going to introduce him anyway because it's my honor and my privilege to do so. Sheriff Thompson is a lifelong resident of Horry County. He is a graduate of Conway High School. Go Tigers. He has over 40 years of law enforcement experience with both the City of Myrtle Beach and the Horry County Police Departments. He was first elected Sheriff of Horry County in 2001, coincidentally. One of the reason we're here tonight, and is currently serving his 7th term. You know, by the way, I was thinking about a comment that I was going to make tonight. I was going to talk about term limits, and I was going to talk about how we need term limits. Because I'm a big fan of term limits. And then I thought, wait a minute, I might be stepping on a couple of toes. We have an elected official on the stage I'm going to rephrase my position on term limits. I want term limits for everybody but the sheriff. Everybody but the sheriff. It's term limits. And we want the sheriff not to go anywhere. Sheriff, we don't want you to go anywhere. In recognition of his commitment to public safety, Sheriff Thompson was named Horry Georgetown Technical College's Law Enforcement Man of the Year. He also received the Young Offender Parole and Reentry Services Community Partner Award presented by Governor Nikki Haley. Most notably, Sheriff Thompson was named Sheriff of the Year by the South Carolina Sheriff's Association and received the Strom Thurmond Award for Excellence in Law Enforcement. Sheriff Thompson is a member of First United Methodist Church of Conway, the Waccamaw Sertoma Club. He is married to the wonderful and outstanding and beautiful Sherry Lewis Thompson, and together they have 3 sons and 6 grandchildren. Y'all please welcome my favorite sheriff, Sheriff Phillip Thompson.
Hello, everybody. Reese, I appreciate your position on term limits with the exception of the sheriff. I appreciate it. Hey, everybody. What a pleasure it is to be with you tonight. And I want to start out by saying thank you for being here. By you being here and coming out tonight with this just tells me and gives me faith of where we're at in our country, our state, and certainly in Horry County. For you to take the time to come out and be with us, to honor the folks from the 9/11 and for public safety and what we do. It really means a lot to us. We don't do this job for a thank you. We don't do this job for anything other than each man, woman, person that wears a badge. They're doing it to serve their community. They're doing it to make a difference, a positive difference in the place that they live. And we take an oath that we will protect and we will preserve. That's what we do. When we start our career and we go to the academy, that's the first thing they teach us on the patch from the academy, and that's what we do. But you know, it doesn't hurt for somebody to say thank you. So we appreciate you being here tonight. 9/11 is sacred to each and every one of us that work in public safety. It's an annual reminder of what happened that day and to bring to us, our brothers and sisters over here in law enforcement and all, it reminds us of why we do this. You know, obviously a lot's been mentioned about what happened yesterday and how terrible that is. Awful. But I sat up late last night watching TV, and this morning I got up and I was watching the news outlets. I was having my coffee before I started getting ready to go to work, and they had the program on with different cuts and events that took place on 9/11 and the days following. You're already in that somber mood, and you see that, and it brings it back. It really does. Brings it back to you. Each one of you, Chief Tanner touched on this, but you think about the feeling that we had following the events of 9/11. So I sat there and I watched it. My wife and I, we sat there and we talked about back then and now and where we're at now in our world. So as I was going into Conway this morning on the bridge, the Main Street Bridge on 501 Business, there's men and women standing on that bridge with flags. Some of them saluting, because I wanted to point at each one of them to let them know, I appreciate you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for remembering. Not that I expected them to do anything different. They've done it every year since then. But that feeling, let us never forget that feeling, because it means so much to us. The issue with going first, Chief Tanner, is you say everything. I had the same thing in my mind to talk about, and I looked over Chief Leonhardt and I said, what you and I both talk about? But I'm going to tell you why that is. That's because we feel the same way. That's because of what we do and where our heart is. It means the same to each and every one of us. It's truly an honor to serve. And we got so many great public safety personnel in Horry County. Fire rescue, a police department, a sheriff's office, 911, it just goes on and on and on. Dedicated, hardworking people who want to make a difference. So was the same thing with those men and women that died on 9/11. That's exactly what they were doing. Going to it. You think about when they got up that morning and they got ready to go to work, they had no idea what was going to happen that day. You think about those folks that worked the night shift and hadn't gone home yet. They had no idea, but what did they do? You think about the men and women who got up out of their bed and got them phone calls and went. That's public safety. That's what we do. God rest their souls, their families. We think about them a lot, but we really think about them on this day. I thank this church for allowing us together and to come here and be with each other. Reese, thank you for recognizing this with the party. And you called me last week. You didn't realize you was in a hurry. You were getting this thing lined up, and you was getting to go. I started to tell you to slow down. I can't hear that fast. But that shows your passion. That shows that you care. Thank you. This shows that you care. Folks, we're not going to give up. They can do all the negativity. They can do everything that they're doing, but I know these men, and I know the other leaders of law enforcement and public safety in Horry County. We meet once a month, and we sit around, and we share information, and we network, and we build relationships. Chief Tanner alluded to that. He cleaned it up a little bit. I'm just going to get right down to it. I talk about hose draggers, and he talks about donut eaters. So that's what we do. I had a son and a grandson that's a fire rescue, and I have another son that's a police officer. Me, you should hear those donut and fire and hose dragger jokes. But we love each other, not just because we're family, we love each other. These men and women that's sitting over here in uniform, thank you all for what you do. Thank you for being here. It's truly an honor to serve, but with the support of men and women like each and every one of you. And the honor guard that came up here a while ago, you can tell they got some military background, by the way. They were going, they're proud too, so let's don't forget our military. Thank you, and God bless each and every one of you. We appreciate you. Have a good evening.
Sheriff Phillip Thompson, y'all. Thank y'all so much. Sheriff, anytime you want me to slow down, all you have to do is say, Reese, take a breath. Give me your undivided attention. I have two speeds, sleep and go. But I can slow down when I have to. I want to introduce y'all next, our new, relatively new, he's been there about a year, Kris, I think. Started in October last year. Kris Leonhardt was born in North Carolina, moved to Horry County as a young child. Kris Leonhardt grew up, graduating from North Myrtle Beach High School, went on to achieve an associate's degree in criminal justice from Horry Georgetown Tech. Leonhardt later obtained a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Liberty University. Go Flames. Chief Leonhardt has served the Horry County Police Department for 23 years. 23 years, y'all. Beginning in 2002, I believe you said on the radio this morning you came on right after 9/11? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Y'all, please give a nice warm welcome to Horry County Police Department Chief Kris Leonhardt. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for putting this event on. It's a wonderful day for us to remember 9/11, fellowship amongst each other, and remember those 2,977 souls lost on 9/11. And you know, it really warms our heart. Like the sheriff was talking this morning, I must have been right behind you, Sheriff. I was coming up the bridge, and they were there with the flags. And what really stood out to me, not only were they saluting, but it was raining. Yes. And they were out there, and they had a passion for their country, their community. And like the sheriff said too, and you know, it's hard to follow two great men and have additional things to say. I think they took everything I was going to say, but I'm going to try. So, but the honor and to be able to serve our community, hands down, is why we do this. We are a part of the community. We thank y'all for your support. We cannot do it without you all, and we are a team. I look at it, when I always say this, it doesn't matter what patch we wear, whether you're a firefighter, EMS, law enforcement, We all have a saying, we say team Horry. Because when the bad things are happening, folks, everybody's coming, and they're coming to help us, help you, and we are truly a team. That goes for our smaller agencies that serve the cities. It doesn't matter. When the bad things are coming, we're coming there to help you. So that's what, to me, is very, very important, our relationships together. As the sheriff spoke to, we meet once a month, and we fellowship, and we have these ideas, and we put everything together so we can work together to serve our community that we're so very proud of. Now, what I will say, too, we spoke today a little bit about the problems going on in our country. We all recognize that. But what I really, really, really appreciate and drive home every time is Horry County's different, y'all. We got great people. They support our public safety, and we appreciate y'all. There's no better place to me than Horry County, and I believe that. But again, from the men and women of the Horry County Police Department and the Horry County government, I just want to thank y'all. Thank you for your support. I'm not going to take much more of your time. I just thank y'all for taking the time to recognize us, recognize 9/11, and we're here for you. Thank you for being on our team.
Another round of applause for all these gentlemen. Thank y'all so much. We are privileged to have the leadership team that we have here in Horry County, leading up, our law enforcement efforts. And by the way, we've got some great. We didn't involve the municipal police departments, but we do have to go home at some point. But we've got some great municipal police departments as well. I now want to take a moment to recognize the most important people who are here this evening. We're going to recognize our first responders. So if y'all are here, if you are active Horry County Police, would you please stand and be recognized? And y'all can remain standing. If you are Horry County Sheriff's Office, would you stand and be recognized? And if you are Horry County Fire Rescue or active duty with any city, a firefighter, please stand and be recognized. All right, if you are, remain standing. If you are in the audience and you are retired police, or do I have any EMS? Did I miss anybody? Okay, so if you're a retired police or fire, and you're retired, active duty, or from any other jurisdiction or any other place where you are former police or fire or EMS, please stand and be recognized. Thank y'all so much. Y'all are the reason that we do this. One of the reasons, the main reason. The purpose here tonight that we're here is not just to remember 9/11. That's extremely important, but to honor, as Chief Tanner said, honor the people who run into burning buildings, not away from them. Y'all are a crown in the a jewel in the crown that is this community, and thank y'all so much for your service. We are indebted to you more than y'all know, and we appreciate all that you do. So thank y'all so much. Be seated. We're now going to have Peggy Goudreau is going to play some bagpipe music. We want to recognize not just our first responders, but we also want to recognize our veterans, active duty. So as she's going to play the service hymns. Now, I learned something tonight, y'all. Didn't know this. You cannot play the Air Force hymn on the bagpipes, apparently. So at the conclusion of what Peggy plays, we're going to recognize our Air Force veterans and our Coast Guard veterans. I know we've got some Coast Guard veterans. So she does not know that tune, but Peggy's going to give us a rendition of the other branches of service. And when you hear your branch's service hymn, please rise and be recognized. Peggy, thank you so much. And do we have any Air Force veterans in the audience? Please stand. Please stand and be recognized. And I know we've got some Coast Guard veterans in the audience. Our Coast Guard strength. There we go. All right, thank you all so much. All of our veterans, again, just one more time. All our veterans, please stand and be recognized. Thank y'all so much for your service. It is a debt we can never repay. It is next my privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, who's going to give us a brief perspective that I know you're going to appreciate on 9/11. Mark Chandler is a national security expert. He is a former Defense Department senior executive intelligence officer. He is a retired Marine Corps intelligence officer with 21 years of experience. He was deployed in Desert Shield and Desert Storm in Operation Iraqi Freedom. He has a resume that is very long, y'all, and very impressive. He has written a book entitled The Israel-Hamas War, Making the Complex Comprehensible. That was just published in May of this year. I can assure you, y'all, if I read all of this, you would be assured of one thing: Mark Chandler is the real deal. And he wanted to share his perspective on 9/11 with us. Y'all, please welcome Mark Chandler.
Wow. How do I follow what's been talked about tonight? Okay? I will tell you, these are the heroes right here. These are the... I appreciate Reese. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. This is an honor to be here. I'm humbled by this experience, and I just hope that I take the next few minutes and I can do this justice. I want to talk about history for a minute. We should never forget. But when we look at history, what does remembering history mean? There's an old saying that says, those who fail to understand the past are condemned to repeat it. I don't know that that necessarily holds true for what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is, if we fail to understand the past, are we going to be good stewards for our future and our nation's future? That's what I want to focus on. So we should never forget, all right? Never forget what happened on that day. If I look here and I'm trying to remember the tragic events of that day, I kind of go back to, where were you? Where were you when the single deadliest attack on American soil by an enemy occurred? As you heard, I was a Marine. I'm far from an expert, but I was a young Marine lieutenant colonel. I was the operations officer at a place called Marine Corps Intelligence Activity, Quantico Marine Corps Base, Virginia, 35 miles south of the Pentagon. I was in my office that day. We were trying to figure out what Marine units were going to get what intel in what part of the world for whatever mission we had to do. Everything was fine. It was a regular Tuesday morning. A young sergeant came running into my office, and he said, "Sir, a plane just hit a building in New York City." I said, "What?" So we ran to the only TV in the building. We're looking. And as I'm looking, it's just before 9 o'clock. The building is burning, and I hear an announcer say, "It looks like a Cessna hit the tower." And I turn to the sergeant and I say, "That was no Cessna." And as we're standing there, a plane starts flying across the screen and crashes into the tower. It's 9:03 on a Tuesday morning. Something is wrong. Something big is happening, and that is probably an understatement. Something big is happening, and I'm not talking about planes crashing into buildings. I told the sergeant, I said, "You stay here, you watch, and you give me updates." And I ran back to my office, and I called a buddy of mine at Defense Intelligence Agency up in Washington, D.C. It's across the river from Reagan Airport. So we're talking. He has a window office. We're going over. I said, "Are you watching this?" He says, "Yes." We don't know what's going on. Nobody can figure out what is going on. This is the Defense Intelligence Agency of the United States of America, and we don't know what's going on. So we're talking for a few more minutes. Remember, I said he had a window office. He looks out, he stops, and he says, "Mark, they just blew up the Pentagon." Being good Marines, we said a few expletives, said our goodbyes, and we didn't speak for the rest of the day. He went off to do what he was doing, and at that moment, I realized we were at war. A war we didn't ask for. We were attacked by 19 terrorists from Al-Qaeda. You have to ask yourself, what did we do to them? What had we ever done to them, and why did they hate us so much that they would want to conduct that attack? We didn't understand. As that day went on, several of us tried to leave Quantico. We wanted to go up. We wanted to go to the Pentagon. We wanted to help out. We were given orders. You're not going anywhere. Stay away from the Pentagon. They're trying to get everybody out of there so that the professionals, those first responders, could do their job. And do their job they did. On that day, in New York City, in Washington, D.C., those first responders did their job. They answered the call unselfishly. They didn't know what they would face that Tuesday morning that was just a regular Tuesday morning for all of us. But they ran to that danger. They answered that call. Those are the heroes. As the days passed, and you still saw the smoke from the fires in New York, you start to realize what was happening. We were called into some meetings, and it was just within a few short days that we began planning for the invasion of Afghanistan. We were going to invade Afghanistan to go after Al-Qaeda. For some unprovoked reason, they attacked us. But we were going to get them back. And so we worked our way through that in the coming days. Now, I was going to talk about a lot of numbers here, but I think we have the numbers here. Let me just say this. A lot of people use numbers to mean a lot of things. We use percentages. We go over different numbers. But behind those numbers are people. They're heroes. There are people who, every day of their life, they don't know what's going to happen, but they answer that call. Thank you. Thank you. All of that. They answer that call. But when we talk about almost 3,000 who were dead, those were people going to work. They didn't know what was going to happen that day after that vicious attack. Over 6,000 injured. Over 400 first responders answering their call, just doing their job. That is the sacrifice. That is what we have to remember. We can never forget. Now, I talked about letting the professionals do their work. Don't send the Marines up from Quantico to do anything. Don't get in the way. Let the professionals work. As they did that work, there's one thing that they did. They ran to danger. They ran to save lives. They did not run away from it. They did not shrink from that responsibility. Those are our first responders. I think if I can take from John F. Kennedy's inauguration speech, there was a line in there where he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." I think the first responders represent that ideal. When they look at it and they go, they don't ask what we can do for them, what we ordinary citizens can do for them. What they say, what they live by what they can do for us every day. And I think that's a powerful, powerful message and a powerful creed. And you know what? They're just doing their job. There are others, when we go through the numbers, that are impacted by what happened that Tuesday morning. I want you to imagine calmly looking at a lake. The water's calm. Throw a rock in. You see a ripple. Throw another rock in. There's another ripple. And another. And the ripples start to spread. And they overlap. Those rocks are our first responders. They are the rocks of our society. but they have families. They have friends. So when you look at that and you see how that solid rock has a ring of ripples that come out from them, come out from their life, come out from their sacrifice, you can see that not only were those who died that day or those who were injured that day doing their job, but they have families. They have friends. And that spreads and that impacts. And that impact and that pain spreads even to today and will continue to tomorrow. It continues because our rocks are strong. But when we throw them into chaos, there is a ripple effect. And we need to remember that. Not just them, but all those impacted there. Now, I mentioned, and I think this is going to be my second to the last numbers. I use so many. So, a few days we were planning the invasion of Afghanistan. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about my brothers and sisters in uniform. You know, we invaded Afghanistan that fall, shortly after 9/11, when you really look at it, you know, not understand what was happening. And when we were done with Afghanistan, almost 2,500 brothers and sisters in arms were killed in action. Almost 21,000 were wounded. A couple of years later, we were going into Iraq. And when we went into Iraq, we didn't know what to expect. And by the time we finished the hard fighting there, over 4,000 were killed in action. Over almost 32,000 were wounded. That is a sacrifice that we all agreed to make when we put on the uniform. Just like the sacrifice that everyone here agrees to make unselfishly as we work through that. There is a bond, there is a thread that started on 9/11. That thread started with that senseless and merciless attack. But it is strong. That thread runs through all of us. That thread bonds our first responders. You heard them talk about how they'll have fun with one another, how they'll do that. We do that across all the services, the inter-service rivalry. I can tell you a lot of Air Force and Navy jokes, but I won't. No, I won't. So we talk about that bond. It is strong, and that was burned into us on 9/11, 2001. Goes through our first responders and makes them strong. Goes through our military, makes them strong. Creates a bond with our military and our first responders. And you know what? It creates a bond across America. We can never let that bond, that thread, start to wither away. We have to keep it strong. We have to remember. So I want to talk a little bit more of some numbers and some vigilance. As Reese said, are we focused where we need to be focused today? So we talked about this in class today. You know, I got to tell you, I've got almost 100 students. Out of that, 4 were alive in 2001. The average age of my students is 20. Maybe they saw 9/11 in a history book. It was a chapter, it was a paragraph, I don't know. But we have to learn from that. And so that's what we talked about today. Learning, remembering, remaining vigilant. I can go back, I don't want to relitigate the mistakes made that led up to 2001. A lot of fingers pointed at intelligence for not being able to pick it up. Right? An intelligence failure we talk about. But I think if we round that circle a little bit, we can see that in the past, a previous administration left a new administration an unsure world, an unclear threat perspective, and Al-Qaeda wasn't on the list. We were not watching, we were not vigilant. As a nation, as an intelligence force, so we have to learn from that. And so I bring you to today. When we look at today, there are wars all over the world. We're looking at wars in Ukraine, wars in the Middle East. We're looking at yesterday's tragedy with Charlie Kirk. We see all of that. You can't go 2 days without seeing the tragic headline of war somewhere in the world. We are looking at that. There are people, there are nations who are out there who want to knock us off our pedestal. Some we know, some we don't. We must remain vigilant. And that's what I talk to the students about. So as we are in here, there's not a lot of 20-year-olds in here. It is our responsibility to pay forward that vigilance, that knowledge of what happened those days, so that we remain strong. One thing I want to leave you with, as we look at that and we pass on to the next generation, I want to quote from President Kennedy again. Right? Let every nation, and I want to modify this just a little bit to go foe, enemy, and terrorist group, know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, we shall bear any burden, we shall meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to ensure the survival of and the success of liberty and our nation. And when I look at that today, you know who embodies that? Our first responders and our military, because they paid the price and they agree that they will pay that price to ensure your safety, your liberty, and the future of our nation. So may God bless America and all the Americans. Thank you.